The young woman just wanted a job, but was humiliated in front of everyone. The millionaire laughed at her until he heard her fluent and perfect English. The entire room was shocked, and the millionaire changed his attitude. In seconds, the humiliated woman became the one he would never forget. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. We'll continue. The reflection in the foggy bathroom mirror at the employment agency returned to Emily an image she knew all too well: brown hair pulled back neatly, modest glasses, and a navy blue blazer bought on sale 2 years ago. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the collar of her white shirt for the 10th time, the only one she owned. The noise from the reception area penetrated the thin walls, bringing laughter and animated conversations from the other candidates. Emily took a deep breath, trying to control the anxiety that made her heart race. At 23, she carried on her shoulders the weight of countless failed attempts to find a job that could change her reality. She put the cheap lipstick back in her worn bag and left the bathroom, walking silently to her place in the waiting room. The other candidates formed small groups, all impeccably dressed and made up. 2 of them in particular kept glancing sideways in her direction, whispering and laughing discreetly. Emily pretended not to notice, focusing on filling out the registration form with her most careful handwriting. Previous experience. The question on the paper made her hesitate. For a moment, she had no formal experience to put there. What she had were endless nights poring over English books found in second-hand stores, hours hidden behind the door of the language school near her home, absorbing every word from classes she couldn't afford. The commotion in the reception increased when Melissa Castle, the famous director of the agency, crossed the room with her expensive heels echoing on the marble floor. All the candidates adjusted themselves in their chairs, except Emily, who remained focused on her form. That's when the main door opened abruptly. A tall man in an impeccable suit and serious expression burst into the room. His gaze quickly scanned the environment before asking the question that would change everything. Who here speaks English? Fluently? The silence that followed was deafening. The candidates exchanged nervous glances, some fiddling with their phones to avoid eye contact. Emily felt her heart racing even faster. Years of solitary study flashed through her mind like a film. Slowly, her right hand rose in the air. Muffled laughter echoed through the room. The girl with the worn blazer and simple glasses really believed she could compete with experienced professionals. The man, however, didn't hesitate. With a firm gesture, he called Emily to follow him. "Miss," he quickly consulted the form in his hands. "Emily Parker, please come with me." As she walked through the mirrored corridors of the office, Emily could feel the stares of the other candidates burning into her back. The man opened the door to a glass-walled meeting room, where 3 foreign executives waited with tense expressions. "We need a translator immediately. Our international contract is at risk, and our regular interpreter is hospitalized," the man explained quickly. "Do you think you can help us?" Emily adjusted her glasses, took a deep breath, and nodded. At that moment, all the years of hidden study, all the dawn hours memorizing vocabulary, all the silent effort she had made was about to be put to the test. When the first executive began speaking in English, her voice flowed naturally, translating each nuance, each technical term, with surprising precision. Minutes turned into hours, and Emily remained steady, mediating a complex negotiation involving millions of dollars. Her voice, once so gentle and almost inaudible, now carried the confidence of someone who mastered not just a language, but the art of communication. By the end of the meeting, the smiles on the executives' faces said it all. The contract had been saved, and Emily remained standing with her legs trembling discreetly under the glass table. The man who had chosen her, whom she now knew to be named Robert Mitchell, Director of International Operations, couldn't hide his amazement. "Extraordinary," he murmured, as the foreign executive said goodbye with effusive thanks in English. "Where did you learn to speak like that?" Emily adjusted her glasses, a nervous habit that had accompanied her since childhood. "I studied by myself," she answered simply. "I always wanted to learn, but I couldn't afford a course." Robert observed her with newfound interest. Before, he could ask more questions, Melissa Castle burst into the room, her eyes shining with a mixture of surprise and opportunity. "The board just called me," she announced without preamble. The contract was not only closed but expanded. They want to open a new international division here in Chicago. Her gaze fell on Emily. "And we need someone with your skills immediately." Emily's heart felt like it was about to jump out of her mouth. Melissa continued. "The position is assistant for international communication. The salary is 3 times higher than the position you originally applied for. Are you interested?" Emily felt the world spin. That salary would change not just her life, but her family's too. She thought of her mother, who had worked as a housekeeper for years to support her, of her small room in the back of the simple house where they lived. "Yes, I am," she replied, her voice firm, despite the emotion threatening to overflow. "Great," smiled Melissa. "Start tomorrow. Robert will be your direct supervisor." As she crossed the reception area again, Emily kept her head high. The same candidates who had whispered and laughed before now watched her in stunned silence. But she barely noticed them. Her mind was already on the possibilities opening up before her. At the building exit, an elegant older woman approached her. She introduced herself as Betty Andrews, coordinator of the Human Resources Department. Her kind eyes conveyed a wisdom that went beyond her words. "I saw your performance today," said Betty with a gentle smile. "You reminded me very much of myself 30 years ago. How about we get a coffee? I have some advice that might be useful for someone just starting out." Emily accepted the invitation, feeling that this was just the first of many significant moments to come. As they walked together to the nearest coffee shop, Betty began to tell her own story of overcoming challenges in the corporate world. The coffee shop was simple, but the conversation that followed would forever change Emily's life. Betty wasn't just another executive. She was someone who deeply understood what it meant to fight against prejudice and invisibility. With each word exchanged, each story shared, Emily felt growing within herself not just gratitude, but also a sense of belonging she had never experienced before. "The corporate world can be cruel to those who come from humble beginnings," explained Betty, thoughtfully stirring her coffee. "But it can also be a place of transformation. The secret is to never lose your essence, even when everyone expects you to change." That night, upon returning home, Emily could barely contain her joy as she shared the news with her mother. The small apartment in the back, which had always seemed so cramped, now overflowed with hope. Her mother cried as she hugged her, proud of the daughter who had never given up on her dreams. Emily's first day at the company began under curious glances and whispers in the corridors. Her navy blue blazer, now accompanied by a pencil skirt hastily purchased at a department store, still stood out in the sophisticated environment. But there was something different in her walk, a subtle confidence that was beginning to bloom. Amanda, Wilson Roberts' executive assistant, was assigned to show her the facilities. Tall, impeccably dressed, and with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, she led Emily through the floors of the building with cutting efficiency. "Here is your workstation," Amanda indicated, pointing to a desk near Robert's office. "I hope you're up to the position. After all, it's not every day that someone goes from reception directly to such a privileged position." Emily caught the irony in Amanda's voice, but remained serene. "Thank you for the orientation. I'll do my best." Her computer was already set up with dozens of unread emails. Most were documents in English that needed urgent translation. Emily immersed herself in work, determined to prove her worth. The hours passed quickly as she translated contract after contract, surprising herself with her own ability to understand complex technical terms. During lunch, Betty appeared at her desk with a welcoming smile. "How about we have lunch together? I know a great place nearby." At the restaurant, between bites of salad, Betty shared more of her experience. "When I started 30 years ago, it was even harder. But I learned that our biggest challenge isn't proving our worth to others. It's believing in ourselves." "How did you overcome all of that?" asked Emily, fascinated by the strength emanating from this woman. "With persistence and help from people who believed in me," Betty replied, her eyes shining with contained emotion. "Sometimes We just need one opportunity to show what we're capable of. Back at the office, Emily found an email that made her heart race. It was an invitation to a video conference with American investors, scheduled for the next day. Robert wanted her to act as an interpreter. "Don't worry," he said, passing by her desk. "You've proven you have the ability. I trust your work." That night, Emily spent hours studying financial terms in English. Her small room transformed into an improvised study, with post-its stuck everywhere. Her mother, bringing a cup of tea, found her completely absorbed in her notes. "Honey, don't overdo it," she warned affectionately. "You need to rest." "Just a little longer, Mom," replied Emily, adjusting her glasses. "Tomorrow is very important." What Emily didn't know was that, at that exact moment, a meeting was taking place in Melissa Castle's office. Amanda Wilson was there, along with other executives. "She's too good to be true," argued Amanda. "How can someone without formal training have such fluency? There must be something wrong with this story." Melissa listened attentively, her face a mask of neutrality. "Keep watching," was her only response. "I want weekly reports on her performance." Meanwhile, Betty was in her own home, looking at old photographs in a worn album. Her fingers stopped on a specific image, and silent tears rolled down her face. There was a secret she kept, something that connected her story to Emily's in a way no one could imagine. The video conference with the American investors began promptly at 9 in the morning. Emily, who had barely slept the night before, surprised everyone once again with her poise. Her translation wasn't just accurate. She managed to capture nuances and convey the message with a naturalness that impressed. Robert observed everything attentively, making discreet notes on his tablet. At the end of the meeting, the investors were generous with their praise. "Your interpreter is exceptional," commented one of them, making Emily blush. But not everything was rosy. During breakfast, Emily noticed furtive glances and whispered conversations that ceased when she approached. Amanda circulated among the departments, always with a folder in her hands and an enigmatic smile on her lips. Betty was the first to notice the signs. During another of their lunches, now a comforting routine, she noticed Emily's unease. "Something's worrying you." It wasn't a question. Emily hesitated before responding. "I feel like I'm being tested. Yesterday I found deliberately mistranslated documents on my desk. Someone wants me to make a mistake." Betty put down her cutlery, her face assuming a serious expression. "When I started, I went through this too. But there was someone who always supported me, someone who—" She stopped abruptly as if she had said too much. "Who?" asked Emily, intrigued by the sudden change in her mentor's behavior. "A story for another time," Betty diverted, turning her attention back to her plate. But her eyes betrayed a deep, almost painful emotion. Back at the office, Emily found an envelope on her desk. Inside was an old photo yellowed by time. It showed a young woman who looked very much like her, in front of a building she recognized as the same language school, where she used to listen to classes in secret. On the back, a date, 1990. Before she could investigate further, Robert called her for an emergency meeting. An important client from China was having communication problems, and they needed someone who could mediate the situation. "But I don't speak Mandarin," protested Emily. "They speak English," Robert reassured her. "We just need someone who understands not just the language, but also the cultural nuances, and you've shown a special talent for that." During the video call, Emily realized there was more at stake than a simple language issue. The Chinese client was visibly frustrated with something that went beyond words. With sensitivity, she began to identify the points of cultural tension that were causing the misunderstanding. Amanda observed everything through the half-open door, her cell phone discreetly recording the meeting. Beside her, another executive was taking frantic notes. That night, when everyone had already gone home, Betty remained in her office, staring fixedly at a photograph in her drawer. It was the same image that Emily had found on her desk, but this one was complete. It showed two young women, not just one. The second person had been carefully cut from the copy that had reached Emily's hands. "It's not time yet," Betty murmured to herself, putting the photo away. She needs to be prepared for the truth. In her small room, Emily also couldn't sleep. The mysterious photo wouldn't leave her mind. There was something familiar about that young woman, something that went beyond physical resemblance. She took out her old English notebook, where she kept clippings and memories of her learning journey. Between the pages, she found an old receipt for an anonymous donation to a language course dated 15 years ago. The week began with news that stirred the entire company. A new international director was arriving from the European headquarters. James Thompson, known for his rigorous restructuring policy, had a reputation for questioning each recent hire in search of resource optimization. Emily felt the weight of the gazes upon her increase even more. During the morning meeting, Amanda made a point of mentioning the importance of formal qualifications in such a strategic position, looking directly at her. "Some people have impressive diplomas, but they lack something essential," intervened Robert, his voice calm but firm. "The ability to connect different people and cultures isn't learned in any university." The comment caused an uncomfortable silence in the room. Emily realized she was at the center of a much bigger battle than she had imagined. After the meeting, she found more tampered documents on her desk, this time with gross translation errors that, if not noticed, could cause serious harm to the company. "You need to document this," advised Betty during their usual lunch. "Keep copies of everything, including the original documents." Emily nodded, but there was something else on her mind. "Betty, that photo. Why did you send it to me?" Betty's expression changed subtly. "What photo?" "The old photograph from the language school." "I didn't send any photo," Betty replied, her face suddenly pale. "You said you found it on your desk?" Before they could continue the conversation, Emily's phone rang. It was Robert requesting her urgent presence in a video conference with the new director. James Thompson was a man with a severe expression and penetrating eyes. Through the screen, his analytical gaze seemed to dissect every person in the room. "Miss Parker," his voice had a cutting British accent, "I've been analyzing your background. It's intriguing how someone without formal language training secured such a strategic position." Emily felt her stomach turn but maintained her composure. "Mr. Thompson, allow me to demonstrate my capabilities. I believe results speak louder than certificates." "Interesting choice of words," he smiled coldly. "We'll see. I'll be in Chicago next week for a complete audit. Prepare yourself for a thorough evaluation." After the meeting, Emily found Robert waiting for her in the corridor. "Don't let yourself be intimidated," he advised. "Thompson may be tough, but he's fair. Prove your worth as you've been doing so far." At the end of the day, while organizing her desk, Emily found another envelope. This time it contained an old newspaper clipping. The headline talked about a promising executive who had revolutionized the corporate training sector in the 90s. The photo showed a young Betty, but what caught Emily's attention was a detail in the background. Her mother, much younger, working as a cleaner in the company. That night, when she arrived home, Emily found her mother sitting in the small living room with an old box in her lap. "Honey, I think it's time we talked about something I've kept for a long time," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "About how you really started learning English." Emily sat beside her mother, her heart racing. The box contained dozens of old envelopes, all with the same letterhead, Andrews Educational Foundation, Betty's surname. Emily's hands trembled as she opened the envelopes yellowed by time. Each contained a payment receipt for an English course, all in her name, dated 15 years ago. The Andrews Educational Foundation had secretly funded her studies for years. "Why did you never tell me this, Mum?" asked Emily, her voice choked with emotion. "Miss Betty made me promise," replied her mother, tears streaming down her face. "She said you needed to believe you achieved everything through your own effort, and you did, honey. The money only paid for the classes, but it was you who studied, who dedicated yourself." The revelation hit Emily like a wave. The nights she spent studying hidden behind the door of the school weren't as secret as she imagined. Betty knew, had always known. The next day, the atmosphere in the company was even tenser. James Thompson had anticipated his arrival and was, already in the building, conducting individual interviews with each employee of the international department. Amanda seemed especially satisfied. "Some people will discover that natural talent isn't enough," she commented loudly, passing by Emily's desk. When it was her turn to be interviewed, Emily found not only Thompson, but also Melissa Castle in the meeting room. On the table were various translated documents, including those that had been tampered with. "Miss Parker," Thompson began, "we found some interesting discrepancies in your translations." "With all due respect, Mr. Thompson," Emily responded firmly, "those documents were tampered with. I have here the original versions, with date and timestamps plus emails that prove the unauthorized alterations." The silence that followed was tense. Melissa Castle frowned, taking the documents that Emily offered. "This is a serious accusation," said Thompson. "Who would have an interest in sabotaging your work?" At this moment, the door of the room opened. Betty entered, carrying a thick folder of documents. "I can answer that question," she said, her voice loaded with determination. "And I can also explain why I personally chose Emily for this position long before she even knew there was a vacancy." Melissa Castle adjusted herself in her chair, her eyes fixed on Betty. "What are you talking about?" 15 years ago, Betty began, I created an educational foundation. Its goal was to identify and support exceptional talents who didn't have access to formal education. Emily was our first and brightest beneficiary. Thompson leafed through the documents with growing interest. "This explains a lot, but why the secrecy?" "Because some people," Betty cast a meaningful look at the door, where Amanda was trying to eavesdrop on the conversation, "believe that opportunities should only be given to those who have already had every chance in life." Emily felt tears forming in her eyes, but held them back. Years of mystery began to make sense. The anonymous payments, the coincidences that led her to that company, Betty's constant support. The silence in the meeting room was as dense as fog. James Thompson analyzed the documents presented by Betty with meticulous attention, while Melissa Castle kept her eyes fixed on her old friend, a complex expression on her face. "The Andrews Educational Foundation," Melissa finally spoke, her voice laden with recognition. "So that's what you did with your annual bonuses all these years?" Betty nodded. "I've always believed that talent and determination can come from anywhere. Emily isn't an isolated case. There are dozens of other young people we've supported. Over the years." Thompson closed the folder of documents with a decisive movement. "Miss Parker, your qualifications have just become even more impressive. Not just for your knowledge, but for your integrity in dealing with the sabotage." The door opened abruptly, and Amanda entered, her face a mask of indignation. "This is ridiculous. She doesn't have a degree. She doesn't have international certifications." "What?" "She has," interrupted Thompson, "is something much more valuable: verifiable results and professional ethics. Unlike someone who tried to sabotage a colleague by altering corporate documents." Amanda's face paled. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The office security cameras record everything, Amanda," said Melissa, her voice icy, "including your nighttime visits to Emily's desk." Emily observed the scene with a mix of emotions. The truth about her past had been revealed, but instead of diminishing her, it seemed to have strengthened her even more. Her eyes met Betty's, who smiled discreetly. "There's one more thing you need to know," said Betty, taking an old photograph from her folder. It was the complete image that Emily had seen partially, now showing two smiling young women in front of the language school. "This is me," Betty pointed to one of the young women. "And this," her voice trembled slightly, "is Sarah, my younger sister. She worked as a janitor to pay for her studies, dreaming of becoming an English teacher." Emily felt her heart race. Sarah. It was her mother's name. "Sarah had a small daughter," continued Betty, her eyes watery. "A brilliant girl who inherited her love for languages. When my sister got sick, I made a promise that her daughter would have all the opportunities she didn't have." The revelation hit Emily like lightning. Betty wasn't just her mentor, she was her aunt. Years of silent support, discreet guidance, protection from a distance. It all made sense now. "Why did you never tell me?" asked Emily, her voice almost a whisper. "Because you needed to believe in yourself first," replied Betty. "Your mother and I agreed that you should build your own path without feeling pressured by our relationship. Each of your achievements was on your own merit, Emily. I just opened some doors. You were the one who chose to walk through them." Melissa Castle discreetly wiped away a tear. Even Thompson seemed touched by the revelation. Amanda, still standing near the door, had lost all her arrogant posture. News about the relationship between Emily and Betty spread quickly through the company, transforming malicious whispers into expressions of admiration. The story of the two women separated by fate, but united by the purpose of transforming lives through education, touched hearts in an unexpected way. Amanda was transferred to another department after a disciplinary process due to the sabotage attempt. Before leaving, she surprised everyone by seeking out Emily. "I was wrong," she admitted, avoiding eye contact. "I spent so much time priding myself on my diplomas that I forgot what really matters." Emily accepted the apology gracefully, remembering Betty's words about how true success isn't about defeating others, but overcoming oneself. James Thompson, impressed with the whole situation, had other plans in mind. During a special meeting, he presented a proposal that left everyone surprised. "The Andrews Educational Foundation," he announced, "deserves more than individual support. I propose an official partnership with our company, a talent development program, on a large scale." Betty, who had always conducted the foundation discreetly, felt her eyes water. That would mean being able to help hundreds of young people. "And I want Emily to be the program coordinator," Thompson added. "No one better than her to identify and nurture new talents." The project quickly took shape. Emily and Betty began working together officially, transforming their personal experiences into a structured professional development program. Emily's story of overcoming obstacles became an inspiration for other young people who, like her, dreamed of opportunities for growth. Robert, who had always silently supported Emily, smiled with satisfaction as he watched her conducting her first meetings as coordinator. "I knew there was something special about you from day one," he commented. At home, Emily and her mother could finally talk openly about the past. Sarah shared stories about her youth with Betty, about her interrupted dreams, and about how her older sister never stopped believing in people's potential. "Your aunt always said that education is the only thing no one can take away from you," Sarah recounted, showing old photographs. "When she found out you were listening to classes hidden behind the door of the school, she saw in you the same determination that I had." A month later, the program was already in full swing. Emily coordinated a group of 20 young talents, each with a unique story of perseverance. In her new office next to Betty's, she kept framed the old photograph of the two sisters, a constant reminder that dreams, when nourished with determination and support, can flourish in the most unlikely circumstances. The success of the talent development program attracted the attention of specialized media. Emily, now more confident in her leadership role, was preparing for her first important interview for a business magazine. The topic: how to transform stories of overcoming into effective corporate policies. "Are you sure you don't want to do the interview in my place?" she asked Betty, nervously adjusting her new modern-framed glasses, a gift from her aunt. "This is your story to tell," Betty replied with a serene smile. "Besides, I have other plans in mind." These plans soon revealed themselves. Betty was negotiating partnerships with other companies to expand the program. The idea was to create a network of opportunities that would extend throughout the country. Thompson, impressed with the initial results, had secured support from European headquarters for the project. During the interview, Emily surprised everyone with her eloquence when speaking about social transformation through education. Her personal story, now intertwined with her professional role, touched hearts and minds. "True talent doesn't choose social class," she declared to the journalist. "Sometimes it's hidden behind a door, dreaming of an opportunity." The report was still being finalized when a new challenge arose. A competing company, impressed with the program, made a tempting offer to Emily, a position as international director with a salary 3 times higher than her current one. They want you to set up a similar program there, explained Robert, who had mediated the proposal. It's a unique opportunity. Emily spent sleepless nights thinking about the offer. The money would allow her mother to finally retire, for them to move to a larger apartment. But something bothered. During one of their special lunches, now a family tradition with Betty and Sarah, Emily shared her doubts. "Do you know what made me create the foundation?" asked Betty, pensively stirring her coffee. "It was seeing your mother, my sister, give up on her dreams for lack of opportunities. I promised myself that I would make a difference in other people's lives, not for the money, but for the purpose." Sarah took her daughter's hand. "Whatever decision you make will be by your side. But remember, your story started here." That night, Emily found a folder on her desk. Inside, there were drawings and letters from the young people in the talent program. Each story there was a reflection of her own journey, dreams that were beginning to take shape, lives being transformed. One note in particular caught her attention. It was from a young woman who, like her years ago, spent hours studying English on her own. "When I learned your story, I realized that I can dream big too. Thank you for showing that it's possible." The words hit Emily deeply. Her current work wasn't just a job, it was a legacy in construction. A continuation of what Betty had started, a chance to multiply opportunities. Emily's decision about the competing company's proposal needed to be communicated. On a sunny morning, she requested a meeting with Thompson and Melissa Castle. "I appreciate the opportunity," she began, her voice firm, "but my place is here. We have a lot of work ahead with the talent program." Thompson smiled, as if he already expected this response. "Actually, we were hoping you'd say that. We have a counter-proposal." Melissa opened a presentation on her laptop. It was a project for international expansion of the program, with Emily assuming an even bigger role, Global Director of Talent Development. "We want you to take this project to all our branches," explained Thompson, "with complete autonomy to adapt the program to local realities." The proposal was even better than the competitors, but it wasn't that which made Emily's eyes shine. It was the possibility of further expanding the impact of the work she was doing. "With one condition," added Emily, surprising everyone with her confidence. "I want Betty to be officially recognized as the co-founder of the program. Everything started with her." News of the promotion spread quickly. Robert was the first to congratulate her, revealing that he had refused to lead the project when Thompson initially sounded him out. "I said there was only one person capable of making this work," he recounted. "Someone who not only understands the program but has lived it." Emily's first action in her new role was to organize a special event. In the company auditorium, she gathered all the young people from the program, their families, executives, and the press. On the stage, a surprise, not just the current participants, but also other beneficiaries of the Andrews Educational Foundation over the years. "Today we're not just celebrating a corporate program," Emily began, her voice echoing through the auditorium. "We're celebrating the belief that talent and opportunity should go hand in hand. It all started with an act of love, a sister believing in another, an aunt protecting her niece from a distance, a foundation born from the desire to make a difference." Betty and Sarah, seated in the front row, held each other's hands, silent tears streaming down their faces. On the big screen behind the stage, the old photograph of the two young sisters transformed into a sequence of images showing the results of the program. Young talents, stories of overcoming, dreams fulfilled. "This isn't the end of a journey," continued Emily. "It's the beginning of something much bigger. Because when we open doors for talent to flourish, we're not just changing one life, we're transforming generations." Emily's office in the new international wing of the company reflected her personal transformation, an elegant blend of modernity and warmth. On the main wall, a world map marked the countries where the talent program would be implemented. On her desk, besides the state-of-the-art computer, remained the old photo of Betty and her mother, a constant reminder of her origins. The first international mission was approaching: Mexico City. The program would be adapted to identify and develop local talents, respecting the cultural particularities of the region. Emily had spent weeks studying Spanish, determined to communicate directly with future participants. "You don't need to learn a new language for each country," Thompson argued during a video call. "I don't need to, but I want to," Emily replied with a smile. "Each language is a new way of understanding people and their stories." On the eve of the trip, Betty appeared in her office with a surprise, an old diary. "This was the notebook where your mother noted the English words she learned during work," she explained. "I found it stored among my things. I thought you should have it now." Emily carefully leafed through the yellowed pages. Her mother's careful handwriting filled every space, with notes, drawings, and small daily victories lovingly recorded. On one of the pages, a newspaper clipping caught her attention. It was a job advertisement for an English teacher, circled in red, dated 20 years ago. "This was her dream," Betty said softly, "to be a teacher. But circumstances didn't allow. Now through you, how many similar dreams can be realized?" The trip to Mexico was transformative. Emily found extraordinary talents in unlikely places: a young woman who had learned English by watching videos in an internet cafe, a young man who translated songs to help the local community, an older woman who gave free language classes in her garage. During a meeting with Mexican executives, something unexpected happened. One of the office cleaners, while serving coffee, accidentally dropped a cup. While everyone started, Emily noticed something. The woman was apologizing in perfectly articulated English. "Maria," called Emily to the surprise of the executives, "how long have you been studying English?" The woman, trembling slightly, explained that she had been studying on her own for years, dreaming that one day she could teach children in need from her community. Emily exchanged a significant look with the local director. "Gentlemen," she announced, "we've just found our first local coordinator for the program." News of Maria's hiring as coordinator resonated far beyond Mexico. It was living proof that the program wasn't just about finding talents, but about recognizing value where others didn't see it. Back in Chicago, Emily found her team expanded and even more motivated. The success in Mexico had created a domino effect. Other company branches were clamoring for implementation of the program. Robert, now her right-hand man in international expansion, could barely contain his enthusiasm. "We have requests from 5 different countries," he informed, spreading reports across the meeting table. "Everyone wants to replicate the Emily model, as they're calling it." Emily laughed at the new term. "There is no Emily model. There's the Betty model, which started all this so long ago." The message on her cell phone interrupted the conversation. It was Maria from Mexico, sharing photos of the first class of students in the program. 30 young people from different backgrounds, all with impressive stories of perseverance. "You know what moves me the most?" commented Emily to Robert. "Seeing how each story connects with another. Maria is already identifying talents in other companies in the region." Thompson, on his last visit to Chicago, brought an even more ambitious proposal: transforming the EASE program into an independent international foundation which could act beyond corporate limits. "Imagine," he said during a dinner with Emily, Betty, and Melissa, "a global network of opportunities, connecting talents and companies around the world." Betty, who until then had been listening silently, added, "And each person benefited becomes a new point of support for others." The project quickly took shape. Emily insisted that the foundation's headquarters be in Chicago, in the same neighborhood where her story began. The chosen building was just a few meters from the old language school where she used to study in secret. During the inauguration ceremony of the International Talent Development Foundation, Emily prepared a special surprise. On the stage, besides authorities and executives, was a singular group: her mother Sarah, Betty, Maria from Mexico, and 10 other participants from the original program, each now in a leadership position in their areas. "This moment doesn't just mark the expansion of a project," Emily began in her speech. "It marks the realization of a dream that began with 2 sisters who believed in the power of education. A dream that grew, transformed, and now has wings to fly beyond borders." Sarah, seated in the front row, held the old English notebook. Betty beside her smiled with pride. The two sisters, who had fought so hard against invisibility in their own journeys, now saw their legacy multiplying on a global scale. News about the International Foundation spread rapidly through the corporate world. In just 3 months, more than 50 companies from different countries had signed up to participate in the program. Emily now divided her time between international travel and coordinating activities in Chicago. One afternoon, while reviewing reports in her office, she received an unexpected visit. Amanda, her former antagonist, had returned after 2 years working at another company. "I came to do something I should have done a long time ago," said Amanda, visibly nervous. "I want to volunteer to be a mentor in the program. My experience made me realize how much privilege I wasted being arrogant." Emily observed the genuine change in her former rival. "Sometimes we need to get lost to find ourselves," she replied with a welcoming smile. "Welcome to the program." Amanda's incorporation brought a valuable new perspective. She began to develop a specific module on how privileged professionals could become allies in promoting equal opportunities. Meanwhile, Maria was transforming the program in Mexico into an international success story. Her unique approach, combining language teaching with professional skills development, had caught the attention of educational organizations throughout Latin America. During a video conference with coordinators from different countries, Emily realized something extraordinary. Each region had adapted the program in a unique way, maintaining its essence but respecting local cultural particularities. In India, "We are integrating the program with female empowerment initiatives," reported the local coordinator. In Kenya, "We combine language teaching with social entrepreneurship." Betty, who participated in the meeting as a special consultant, couldn't contain tears of emotion. Her small educational foundation had transformed into a global movement of social transformation. One day, arriving home, Emily found her mother organizing old photographs. Among them, she discovered an image she had never seen. Her young mother, wearing a badge as an assistant teacher in an English course. "It was my only day as a teacher," explained Sarah, caressing the photo. "The course closed the following week and I had to go back to cleaning work, but that single day it was magical." Emily felt her heart tighten. The next day, during a foundation board meeting, she presented a new initiative, the Sarah program. "We're going to identify professionals who had their educational dreams interrupted," she explained. "People who, like my mother, had to abandon their aspirations due to life circumstances. We'll give them not just training, but a second chance to realize their dreams." The Sarah program was received with instant enthusiasm. In less than a week, hundreds of similar stories began to arrive from all corners of the world. Teachers who never got to practice their profession, artists who traded their dreams for survival, professionals who abandoned their vocations out of necessity. Sarah was invited to be the honorary ambassador of the program that bore her name. Her first public appearance was at a launch event that brought together participants from all generations of the project. "I never imagined that my small dream of being a teacher could inspire something so big," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "But I learned from my daughter that dreams have no expiration date." The impact of the program was immediate. Companies began to create special policies to hire and develop more experienced professionals. Sarah's story inspired a network of solidarity between generations, where young talents and mature professionals exchanged experiences and knowledge. Emily observed everything with a mixture of pride and gratitude. In her office, the world map was now filled with colorful dots, each representing a life transformed by the program. But it was a small discovery that brought one of the greatest emotions. Among the old documents of Betty's original foundation, she found a yellowed envelope with her name on it. Inside was a letter that her aunt had written 15 years earlier, when she began to secretly support her studies. "Dear Emily, if you're reading this letter, it means the cycle has been completed. When I saw you studying hidden behind that door, I saw your mother in you, the same determination, the same sparkle in your eyes. I promised myself that you would have the opportunities she didn't have. But you did much more than achieve your dreams. You multiplied opportunities. You transformed your personal story into an open door for other dreamers. This has always been the true purpose of education, not just to learn, but to teach, not just to grow, but to help others grow. With love, your Aunt Betty. The letter inspired Emily to create yet another initiative within the foundation, a reverse mentoring program where young talents guided senior executives on new perspectives and social realities. The idea was to create bridges between worlds that rarely met. True power isn't in climbing alone, Emily explained in her lectures. It's in building elevators so others can climb too. Thompson, who monitored the foundation's development from a distance, sent a message that summarized the general feeling. You didn't just create a development program, you created a social transformation movement. The success of the Foundation's various programs attracted the attention of an important international organization. UNESCO proposed a partnership to take the talent development model to regions with few resources around the world. It was an opportunity for unprecedented expansion. Emily gathered her advisory board to discuss the proposal. In addition to Betty, Sarah, and Robert, she now also had Maria from Mexico and representatives from various countries. Amanda, who had become one of the program's most dedicated mentors, was also present. This partnership would allow us to reach communities we never dreamed of reaching, explained Emily, projecting maps of remote regions. But we need to ensure we maintain our essence. Betty, who was carefully observing the presentations, stood up with a special gleam in her eye. I have a suggestion, she said. Why don't we transform each successful participant into a support point in their community? The idea was brilliant in its simplicity. Each person who went through the program would commit to identifying and mentoring at least 3 other talents in their region. It was the multiplier effect in its purest form. Sarah, who now coordinated the program that bore her name, shared a moving story. One of her first students, a 60-year-old woman who had abandoned her dream of being a translator decades ago, had just published her first translation of an international book. There are no dreams with an expiration date, repeated Sarah, her phrase now transformed into one of the Foundation's mottos. The partnership with UNESCO was formalized in a special ceremony at United Nations headquarters. Emily, as she took the podium for her speech, carried with her her mother's old notebook. This notebook represents much more than English words, she began. It represents the persistence of a woman who, even without being able to attend a formal school, never stopped learning. Today, we are here to ensure that no talent remains hidden for lack of opportunities. The FUR event was broadcast live to all Foundation centers around the world. On giant screens, participants from different countries shared their transformation stories. A young woman from Kenya who created a mobile language school, an elderly man from India who revolutionized technology teaching in his village, a teenage girl from Brazil who developed an app to connect hidden talents. Amanda, who watched everything from the front row, couldn't hold back tears. Her own journey of transformation had become a case study on how prejudices can be overcome through empathy and mutual understanding. The global expansion of the Foundation brought unexpected challenges, but also revealed extraordinary stories. In a small village in Thailand, a retired teacher transformed her house into a study center after participating in the Sarah program. In Chile, a group of young people created a network of community libraries inspired by the Foundation's principles. Emily traveled tirelessly, but always made a point of being present at the monthly meetings of the first class of the program in Chicago. Those students, now established professionals, had become much more than success stories. They were family. During one of these meetings, Robert shared news that moved everyone. The company where it all began had decided to create a permanent fund to finance scholarships, ensuring the sustainability of the Foundation's projects. And the name of the fund? Asked Emily, curious. The Andrew Sisters Fund, replied Robert with a smile, in honor of Betty and Sarah. The two sisters, sitting side by side, squeezed each other's hands. Their personal stories of struggle and overcoming had been transformed into a permanent legacy of social transformation. Thompson, now retired, but still active on the Foundation's board, presented an impressive report. More than 10,000 lives directly impacted in 30 different countries. Each success story generated, on average, 5 other opportunities in their communities. But the most impressive number, he highlighted, isn't in the statistics. It's in the individual stories, in the transformed families, in the dreams fulfilled. Maria, connected by video conference from Mexico, shared her latest initiative, an exchange program between different foundation centers. The idea was to allow participants to experience different cultures and teaching methodologies. When I was promoted from cleaner to coordinator, she said, I learned that talent has no borders. Now, I want others to have that experience too. Amanda, who had become one of the main articulators of the reverse mentoring program, presented surprising results. Executives who participated as mentors reported profound changes in their perspectives on inclusion and diversity. We're not just changing careers, she explained. We're changing mindsets. Emily observed everything with a mixture of pride and gratitude. In her office, besides the world map full of markings, there was now an entire wall covered with photographs. Each image told a transformation story. Each smile represented a dream fulfilled. On a spring morning, Emily received an email that made her smile instantly. It was from a renowned university, inviting her to create a special chair dedicated to the study and development of social inclusion programs through education. It wouldn't just be an academic position, it would be an opportunity to transform her practical experience into a replicable methodology. It's time to systematize all our knowledge, she explained during a meeting with her team. Transform our experiences into a model that can be studied and adapted by other organizations. Betty, who always encouraged innovation, suggested something even more ambitious, an international research center focused on developing new methods for identifying and nurturing talents. Think about it, she argued. How many other talents are still hidden out there, waiting for an opportunity? The project quickly took shape. The Center for Human and Social Development Studies would be built in the same neighborhood where Emily used to study in secret, transforming a previously neglected area into a hub of knowledge and innovation. Amanda, who had specialized in diversity and inclusion programs, took on the coordination of one of the center's main projects, a research laboratory focused on eliminating unconscious biases in the corporate environment. It's amazing how life comes full circle, she commented during a presentation. A few years ago, I was part of the problem. Today, I work to be part of the solution. Maria, connected by video conference from Mexico, shared the impressive results of her most recent project, a network of community teaching centers that had already spread throughout Latin America. Each center is unique, she explained, adapted to the local reality, but all share the same DNA, belief in human potential. Sarah, who now divided her time between the program bearing her name and motivational talks, had become a living symbol that it's never too late to start over. Her presentations filled auditoriums, inspiring people of all ages to pursue their dreams. You know what moves me the most, she shared during a family lunch. Seeing that each success story isn't just an individual victory, it's a beacon of hope for an entire community. The impact of the Foundation's work began to be recognized at increasingly higher levels. International organizations, governments, and educational institutions sought partnerships and guidance to implement similar programs. Thompson, on his last visit to Chicago before retiring definitively, brought surprising news. The European headquarters had decided to transform the Foundation's model into a global corporate policy, ensuring that all its branches worldwide adopted similar practices for identifying and developing talents. The inauguration of the Center for Human and Social Development Studies was an event that brought together people from all continents. In the main auditorium, transformation stories were shared in different languages, but the language of hope was universal. Emily, as she took the stage for her speech, carried with her not just her mother's old notebook, but also dozens of other notebooks, diaries of program participants who, like her, had transformed their lives through education. Each page of These notebooks tells a story of perseverance, she began. But more than that, it tells a story of human connections, of people who believed in other people, of dreams that inspired other dreams. The event marked not just the opening of a study center, but the beginning of a new phase in the Foundation's history. Researchers from different areas would unite to study and improve human development methodologies. Robert, who had become one of the program's main international articulators, presented impressive data. The support network created by the Foundation now reached more than 50 countries, with results that went far beyond professional development. We're seeing entire communities transforming, he explained. Families who, for generations, lived on the margins of opportunities now have their children in universities, in leadership positions. Betty and Sarah, seated in the front row, held each other's hands as they did so many years ago, when they were just two young dreamers. Their silent tears spoke of pride, gratitude, dreams fulfilled. Amanda, now a respected specialist in diversity and inclusion, shared the first results of her research on transforming corporate cultures. Prejudice, she explained, often stems from ignorance. When we create bridges of understanding, we tear down walls of prejudice. Maria, who had traveled from Mexico especially for the event, brought with her an exciting surprise, a documentary about the transformations caused by the program in different Latin American communities. Each story here, she said, presenting the film, is a mirror of Emily's story. People who, even when no one else believed, continued to believe in themselves. The documentary showed touching scenes, a 70-year-old woman fulfilling her dream of graduating in literature, a young man from an underprivileged community developing social technologies, a single mother who became an international executive. Thompson, in his closing speech, summarized the general feeling. What began as a talent development program has transformed into a global movement of social transformation. And the most beautiful thing is that each success story generates new stories in an endless cycle of hope. 5 years after the inauguration of the study center, Emily found herself in her office reviewing a special document, the 1,000th success story documented by the program. It was the case of a young woman from the outskirts of Chicago who, just like her years ago, used to study in secret at a language school. History repeats itself, but now with a different ending, commented Betty, who had silently arrived at the door. She didn't need to study in secret for long. One of our monitors identified her and offered her a full scholarship. The study center had transformed into a hub of social innovation, attracting researchers and scholars from around the world. The methodologies developed there were being applied in schools, companies, and social organizations on 5 continents. Amanda, who now led the Department of Research on Diversity and Inclusion, had just published a revolutionary study on how to identify and nurture talent in vulnerable communities. Her work was changing the way large corporations thought about recruitment and development. You know what we discovered? She explained during a presentation. Talent is equally distributed across all social classes. What isn't equally distributed are opportunities. Maria had transformed the Mexican program into a reference model for all of Latin America. Her method of identifying talents through community networks was being studied and replicated in various countries. On an especially significant afternoon, Emily received a visit that deeply moved her. An elderly lady, leaning on a cane, asked to meet her. It was Mrs. Johnson, the former janitor of the language school where she used to study in secret. I always knew you would go far, said the lady with watery eyes. I kept this all these years. And she handed Emily a small yellowed paper, an English essay that Emily had dropped one day and that Mrs. Johnson had kept as a treasure. The paper, framed, earned a special place on the wall of the study center, next to the old photo of Betty and Sarah. It was another symbol of how small acts of kindness could transform lives. Sarah, who continued inspiring people with her talks, had started a new project, a book telling stories of late beginnings. Her own story was the first chapter, but the book was filled with accounts of people who, through the Sarah program, had found the courage to start over. Each story in this book, she wrote in the introduction, is proof that it's never too late to realize a dream, and each realized dream is a door that opens for other dreamers. On a special morning, 10 years after the beginning of everything, Emily stood before the mirror in her office. She was no longer the insecure young woman with a worn blazer. She was a strong woman, secure in her purpose. But her eyes still shone with the same determination as before. The day was historic. The foundation would be recognized by the UN as one of the most important social transformation projects of the decade. But for Emily, the real celebration was in the small moments, in the individual stories, in the smiles of gratitude. In the great auditorium of the study center, familiar faces gathered. Amanda, now a world reference in corporate inclusion. Maria, whose program in Mexico had become an international model. Robert, always by her side, supporting each new initiative. Thompson, though retired, still active on the advisory board. Betty and Sarah, the sisters who started it all, sat in the front row as always. Their hair might be whiter, but their hearts remained young, beating with the same love that had transformed so many lives. When I began studying English hidden behind that door, Emily began her speech, I dreamed of changing my own life. I never imagined that this dream could transform into a movement capable of changing so many other lives. The statistics were impressive. More than 100,000 people directly impacted, programs in 70 countries, hundreds of partner companies, but the numbers didn't tell the complete story. The real transformation was in the people. Each person who goes through our programs, continued Emily, takes with them not just knowledge, but the responsibility to be a bridge for others. That's how we multiply opportunities. That's how we build a more just world. On the big screen behind her, images succeeded one another. Young people studying in community libraries, mature professionals restarting their careers, entire communities transforming through education. Each story was a living testimony that talent and opportunity, when they meet, can change the world. Our story doesn't end here, Emily concluded. It continues in each person who dares to dream, in each hand that extends to help, in each door that opens for new talents. Because the true legacy isn't in the awards or recognition, it's in the transformed lives and fulfilled dreams. The end of the event, Emily found a special gift on her desk, a new notebook with a dedication written by her mother and her aunt. For you to continue writing new stories of hope, the message said, because each turned page is a new beginning, and each new beginning is an opportunity to transform one more life. Emily smiled, opening the notebook to the first blank page. There were still so many stories to be written, so many dreams to be fulfilled, so many lives to be transformed, and she was ready to continue this journey one page at a time. The success of the foundation brought an unexpected challenge: how to maintain the essence of the project while it grew exponentially. Emily found herself facing this question during an extraordinary meeting of the International Board. We have partnership requests from more than 200 new companies, presented Robert, now Director of Global Expansion. The challenge is no longer finding supporters, but ensuring that each new partner truly understands our mission. Emily observed the digital map on the wall of her office, where luminous points indicated each foundation center around the world. Each light represented not just a location, but hundreds of transformation stories. Maybe it's time to create something new, suggested Amanda, who had just returned from a series of lectures in Europe. A kind of global corporate university, focused exclusively on developing multiplier leaders. The idea quickly gained strength. The project, baptized as the Social Transformation Academy, would be a center of excellence to train people who could replicate the Foundation's model in their own communities. Maria, connected by video conference from Mexico, shared an experience that further strengthened the proposal. In Chiapas, one of our first students created a network of community schools that already serves more than 5,000 children, all because she learned not just skills, but how to be an agent of transformation. Betty, who followed everything, with her wise gaze added, "What we do isn't just teaching, it's awakening in each person the ability to be light for others." Sarah, inspired by the new developments, proposed an adaptation of the program bearing her name. Let's create a specific strand to train community educators, people who can identify and nurture talents in their own neighborhoods. The proposal resonated deeply with Emily. She remembered Mrs. Johnson, the janitor who had kept her essay for so many years. How many other people, in apparently simple positions, could be catalysts for transformation? The pilot project of the Academy began with 100 participants from 50 different countries. Each brought with them not just personal dreams, but the commitment to multiply opportunities in their communities. During the inaugural class, Emily shared a reflection she had kept in her new notebook. The true power of a dream isn't in its individual realization, but in its capacity to inspire other dreams. The Social Transformation Academy quickly became a model of educational innovation. In its first year, the 100 leaders trained had already initiated projects that benefited more than 50,000 people in their communities. Emily, observing the growing impact of the work, decided to take a significant step. In partnership with renowned universities, the foundation began to develop a master's program in social transformation and human development. It's not just an academic course, she explained during the project presentation. It's a way to systematize our experience and create a solid theoretical basis for future generations. Amanda, who coordinated the research part of the program, had discovered an interesting pattern. Each person benefited by the foundation's projects impacted on average 15 other people in their community. It's what we call the butterfly effect of social transformation, she explained in an international seminar. Each small change generates waves of impact that multiply exponentially. On a special afternoon, Emily received a visit that made her realize the true reach of her work. A young woman from rural India, a participant in the exchange program, brought with her a unique gift, a traditional sari embroidered by women from her village. Each stitch of this embroidery, explained the young woman, was made by a woman who today studies or works thanks to projects inspired by the foundation. The sari tells our stories. Betty and Sarah, seeing the gift, couldn't hold back tears. The colorful fabric was more than a piece of clothing. It was a living symbol of how dreams could intertwine and create something even more beautiful. The sari earned a special place in the foundation's memorial next to Sarah's Old English notebook and the essay kept by Mrs. Johnson. It was another piece in the mosaic of stories that composed that global movement of transformation. "You know what moves me the most?" commented Emily during a conversation with her team. "Seeing that each of our stories inspires not just individual overcoming, but a commitment to collective transformation." The Academy was about to graduate its first class. Among the graduates, there was a special coincidence. A young woman who, just like Emily years ago, had begun her journey studying in secret. But unlike the past, she didn't have to wait years for an opportunity. The program identified and embraced her. "The cycle completes itself," said Betty, observing the young woman presenting her final project. "But it doesn't end. Each story of overcoming is just the beginning of many other stories." And so, what had begun as the dream of an invisible young woman had transformed into a global movement of transformation, proving that when opportunities meet talents, there are no limits to what can be achieved. Emily, in her office, opened her new notebook once more. On the first page, she